Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Welcome to episode number 98 of the Batman on Film Social Hour Podcast. I am the host of this Batman on Film show, Bill Ramey. Oh, I also founded Batman on Film way back in 1998 on web TV. If you want to hear that story, just go find episode 1 of the Batman or the BOF Chronicles, the Batman on Film Chronicles podcast. Whole history of Batman on Film. Garret knows the story. Do you know the story?
Well.
You know the story.
Know it
Okay.
well.
All right.
Know it well.
All right.
Live the story. We talked about that last time. I'm an old school guy, man. I'm a BOF OG. I've been with BOF as a loyal BOF for longer than any relationship in my entire life outside of being somebody's kid or brother. I've got 22 years actively reading BOF. I've only been married for 12. So you got my wife beat by 10 years, Bill.
I have been with Batman on Film longer than announcer Rachel.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's 25 years, coming up here next year. So anyway, speaking of Garret, this is senior BOF contributor Garret Grev, and we're back together today to talk about some DC on film news.
Heck yeah, there's been a bunch of it.
The last time we spoke, we talked about James Gunn's cryptic tweet featuring the image from the graphic novel Kingdom Come, saying with the caption "making plans," and talked about how you could do a DC shared universe based on Kingdom Come, more of a obviously an adaptation of, not a straight up. And inspired by a riff on it. If you want to check that out, just go listen to episode number 97 of the Batman on Film Social Hour. But this one is, some things are starting to come out. And I will say, and Garret can vouch for this, that I've heard whispers of this over the last couple of weeks. It looks to me, well, let's just go straight to the source. So the story first came in the Hollywood Reporter yesterday. And I want to make sure I get them right. All right. So basically, I'm just going to bullet point this, Garret. Respond if you want. In a nutshell, from the Hollywood Reporter, they said that Warner Brothers has canceled Wonder Woman 3, and there's kind of some, we can talk about that in just a second, because it's not as dead as it may seem to be. Black Adam sequel is unlikely to happen. A new Superman film with Henry Cavill is unlikely. Aquaman 2 is probably Jason Momoa's last turn as Arthur Curry, and they even mentioned that he may have a future as Lobo in a future DC film, and they weren't going to F with Matt Reeves or the Batman universe. So thoughts on that real quick, and we can, you can bullet them out. I think the Wonder Woman thing, Humberto Gonzalez from The Wrap followed up saying that it was more Patty Jenkins walking away from Wonder Woman 3 because they did not want to use her treatment that she had turned in. So speak to that.
Yeah. The way things get phrased to make an impact on social media and get the eyeballs on it and get the clicks, which of course, that can sound kind of pejorative, right? Like clickbaity stuff. but there is a way you have to post things to get people's attention and click into it. I think the further clarification around Wonder Woman 3, a third Wonder Woman film, is not dead. The treatment in the direction that it was going is not going to continue. So, and then we got more word on sort of the interactions between Patty Jenkins and the studio heads. And, you know, she's an artist, and she's got a vision. If there's a way she wanted to do this story and it wasn't going to work for her to be able to dedicate years of her life to doing a different version of a Wonder Woman 3 besides what she had cooked up and obviously loved, if she was the creative voice behind it, I can understand that. But that doesn't mean we're not going to see a third Wonder Woman movie. I think that'd be pretty silly at this point. Like, we're going to see more Wonder Woman, whether that's Gal Gadot or not. I'm not sure. You know, Gal, beginning of this week, had a tweet that kind of raised some eyebrows, talking about how, you know, joyed she was when she got the opportunity to play Wonder Woman and was looking forward to, you know, being in the third chapter of this at some point in the future. People were sort of like, well, where's this coming from? The same day, there was a tweet that kind of went a little bit low level viral, saying like, who's your favorite? Got a few thousand likes. Maybe it's up more than that, you know, as the stories progressed. Linda Carter or Gal. And I think some people thought maybe that was a response to that, or, you know, kind of in the mix, but it seems pretty clear. The word was, hey, this version of a third Wonder Woman movie isn't going to continue on. It is notable that the studio asked Patty to like have a new approach. Yeah. And it was Patty, you know, that said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to walk away. And some of the details that were shared makes me feel like maybe she wasn't real happy about that. But, you know, here's the deal. If I'm James Gunn and Peter Safran, and I've got a vision for where I want this universe to go and the characters within this universe, and the previously attached director's vision, or the currently attached director's vision, isn't in line with that, that's a tough deal, right? Like, you're the head of this studio. You're mapping out the plans that you have. The characters are bigger than any one director, and they're bigger than any one actor or actress. Yes. So I think this is appropriate to get forward momentum and to get some progress going on. Sometimes you have to say no as a leader, as a boss. You have to say, no, we're not going to go in that direction. We're going to pivot over here. I'd sure like you to come with, but if you can't, you know, let's mutually respectfully part ways. And you hope that's how it was handled behind closed doors.
The Wrap article mentioned that they don't know if Gal Gadot, it's Gal. Is it Gal, or I don't want to butcher her name, man.
You know, you see it different ways all the time. I've looked it up in the past.
Gal Gadot.
I've understood there is a bit more T at the end of it, but it's not like the English T we'd put on at the end of a word where it's a hard T.
I should know this after, you know, she's been playing the character a while.
How many years, right?
My bad. I would say they did say in the Wrap that they didn't know if she wanted to continue on in the role without Patty Jenkins.
Yeah.
So we shall see. I think this is clear to say. It's pretty clear that this is a brand new DC on film universe.
Yes.
It will not be tied to anything that came before, under, you know, starting with Man of Steel up through, you know, even, I mean, frankly, for Black Adam. So that's a bit of a monkey wrench, because do you pull a who was the actress who played the same character in two iterations of Bond, Judi Dench?
Sure. Yeah, she was M.
She was
in different versions, in the Pierce Brosnan and the Daniel Craig.
Yeah, and they were in it. Daniel Craig was a reboot. It was not connected to the previous one. But do you use some of the actors? Specifically, who were the two most successful? Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa.
I looked it up, by the way, while we were talking. It is Gadot, like a G-U-H.dot-D-O-T. Gadot.
Good.
And the gal is not like gal, and it's not like gall. It's something in the
in between. Okay.
Yeah. There we go.
Do you bring characters in, or bring the actors in to play new versions of characters in a new continuity, in a new universe, or do you just completely start from scratch? And
I
that's
think
the thing that's tricky. I am under the belief, if you're going to start over, then start over. That's just me.
I think that's the most straightforward way to do it. And, I said this on Twitter this week. I just kind of said it earlier. These characters are bigger than the actors who portray them for a while. And we can fall in love with those portrayals. I love Christopher Reeve Superman. Love it. I very, very much like the idea of what Henry Cavill could do with Superman. I haven't quite had the chance to see him do the thing I would like him to do with Superman, but this is just a little Garret, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, someone else is going to play this character, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you age out of the role, people tragically pass away, there's a horrific accident, or there's just, creative differences. Somebody eventually is going to play these characters that hasn't been the person to play them in the past. We saw it, Michael Keaton to Val Kilmer, of course, very famously. So I think you have to be comfortable, or at least accepting of the idea that that's going to happen at some point. And if it's going to happen at some point, is it so terrible for it to happen when this universe is doing a reset with new leadership, with new vision, with, the biggest story on earth that they want to tell? Should that be this major hurdle for audiences to get over? I don't really believe so. I don't think the majority of the general audience is not care.
No,
the majority of the dedicated fan base, I think, is, not ambivalent, but, probably as open as reasonably possible, even if they're going to, lose some fan favorites. There's a small dedicated audience. We don't need to call them out specifically, but it's a core group that's going to have an issue with this, right? But I think it's worth noting, not just to poke at those guys or those people, but I think it's worth noting that to say, if I'm the new creative vision and head of this studio, could I feel like it's an unnecessary burden to carry elements of the old world that have been problematic and have been controversial and have caused a ton of headache on social media and putting up billboards and all the silly stuff? Mm-hmm. Do I really want to have that shadow continue to be cast on this new thing I'm doing? And does including those actors become a hindrance and more nonsense than it's really worth? On the other side of it, I think there is a way. I think with talented filmmakers and talented storytellers and talented actors, you could conceivably have some of these same actors portray new versions of these characters. It might be tricky for a movie, but if the movie's good, eventually people won't care. So I think there's the opportunity to go in either direction. I do see how it would be a cleaner restart to just say, we got new folks. And if Jason wants to stick around and be Lobo, that's just fine. I don't have any issue with that. It's a completely different character. And that guy seems like, he's been a great Aquaman. I think he is. If you're looking for like comic book page to screen representation, I mean, he's kind of born to play Lobo. I don't,
my gosh. Yes.
It's pretty uncanny.
Black Adam, according to Hollywood Reporter, unlikely to happen. And then there was a competing. I asked someone insider about the Deadline article. It was kind of the answer to the Hollywood Reporter article.
Sure.
And they were like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Just different, worded a little different.
Phrasing it a little bit differently.
Yeah. Black Adam sequel, unlikely to happen. Based on Black Adam's performance, I get it. On the other hand, you would think they'd want to be in business with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock.
That's it to me. I think there's two things that could have a big impact on this besides, the financials. And there's been a lot of talk about the financials this week. A story earlier in the week that didn't make sense to me. I consider myself a very amateur box office student, but it's been one of the things I've been into over the years. It didn't make sense to me how the article that came out and then sort of the social media narrative was like, this movie's going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. It explodes all the way to that. Like the hyperbole takes over and people that want to dump on it. That never really made a lot of sense to me. I thought high level profitability was going to be a challenge based on domestic and international box office receipts. There's the X factor of the video on demand sales. But given that what we knew about the budget, being upwards 185 to 195 million dollars, advertising, and marketing for a film like this would normally be at least $100 million. Sometimes they double the budget for something like this, which I think is irresponsible. But when those numbers kind of showed out, The Rock shared the P&L, and he was able to use a lot of his own branding to fill in the place of what sometimes you'd pay other people to do, which was beneficial for The Rock and helped kind of keep costs down. But when it kind of shook out a little bit that this wasn't a blockbuster success, but it wasn't an unmitigated disaster that's costing the studio hundreds of millions of dollars, it did make my eyebrows raise a little bit to say, okay, there is the potential that the studio could say, all right, two things. One, it's still a good thing to be in business with The Rock, and we want to continue that relationship. So it might be a relationship-based thing, right? If and there's been speculation about sort of power struggle between Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and Safran and Gunn. But if those two groups can work out a healthy working relationship, and Warner Brothers Discovery says it's good for us to be in business with The Rock, because remember, it's not just DC Films, it's Warner Brother Films, and it's all the different television properties and streaming properties that Discovery brings. We might not want to alienate The Rock. So we could look at this first movie as sunk costs from an investment standpoint to build some characters maybe we want to use out there and better known. And while it wasn't a huge success, we didn't lose our pants on it, and we could build from here. I think there's the world where that could continue. There's also the world where everyone says, hey, this movie started production over 15 years ago. This guy was cast like 15 years ago. Yeah. There's a lot of buildup that kind of fizzled a bit, unfortunately, and it's just time to cut bait and move on. I could see either scenario playing out. I think it depends on the creative choices, and it depends on if Warner Brothers Discovery really feels like if we don't move forward with this, we're screwed when it comes to the rock business, and the rock business has been proven for well over a decade to be a business you want to be a part of.
I would say that there's not a huge demand for a Black Adam sequel. So I don't know if they'll actually do, they may want to continue with The Rock as Black Adam, but not do a Black Adam solo film again.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think it actually would make more sense.
Yeah. Maybe he's part of ensemble type cast movie. I don't think the hierarchy of power changed.
Yeah, not quite, right?
No.
I think you introduced the second most powerful character in the DC universe. So if you want to say in the narrative now, there's somebody just slightly less powerful than Superman in the DC universe, like that's accurate, but otherwise, no.
Yes. And of course, I think just far as, the hierarchy of power overall with DC on film, we know that lies with the guy who lives in Gotham City. So,
right. Yeah. He's still sort of the top dog,
Yes.
I remember a phrase that has been used historically over in BOF land for years and years and years now is, WB shakes their bat moneymaker, because that's what it comes down to, right? He keeps them in the black when it comes to this stuff.
The Aquaman 2 thing, or the Aquaman 2 could be Jason Momoa's final turn as Aquaman. That kind of goes along with what you said about when we talked about, do we bring back the same actors for new versions of the previous characters they played? I mean, Aquaman made $1 billion plus. It was a big hit. Certainly, we hope that the sequel does well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But do you will that fit the vision, of what they want to do going forward? It's the same thing, right?
It'll be interesting, right? Because I think does it fit the vision? Does this thing come out and make another $1 billion that makes, because we're talking about Gunn and Safran quite a bit, but David Zaslav is an important element here as well. And if Aquaman 2 comes out and makes $1 billion,
Yeah.
you might get an executive decision over the top to say, hey, you might be the CEO of DC Studios, but I'm the big chief here. And Aquaman 2 just made $1 billion. I want more Jason Aquaman. Like that's conceivably something that could happen. And Aquaman 2 very well could make $1 billion because based on the story elements and the performance of Aquaman 1 internationally, and specifically in China, I mean, it was like almost $300 million out of China.
Yeah.
Like they dug what was going on with Aquaman.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of these other projects that have not been shown, the Chinese market has been closed to them, did not have a chance to get those Chinese bucks.
Mm-hmm.
If Aquaman 2 follows Aquaman 1 and can be shown in China, that market's open, that's a floodgate of cash that could come in. But maybe you make your money and you say, hey, we got a couple $1 billion Aquaman movies out of this deal. The character has more global recognition and signs of profitability now than it did before, to the point that we're comfortable swapping the actor out.
I'm with you completely. I just wanted to add regarding Aquaman 2 is that it appears that they are eliminating anything filmed that would tied into other DC movies, and
fat reduction surgery in the last cut, from the sounds of it.
Yes, and so it's going to be in a standalone Aquaman film completely. Not that it wasn't before, because that's what James Wan wanted, but you add in Keaton Batman cameo replaced by Ben Affleck Batman cameo, and then you take both out because you don't want that kind of stuff in that film. And it's tricky because it comes out after The Flash.
Yeah, that is the release schedule, and all of this has been one of the more interesting factors to try to, pull into your calculations of what's going on here. In some ways, you feel like it would make a lot of sense to flip-flop these two things, but with so much movement, does that do more harm than good at this point? Like, these movies have been in the can for a long time, right? Like, filming's been wrapped on this and The Flash for a very long time. They've been in post forever. But narratively, a release schedule might make more sense if The Flash is really your reboot. If it could have come out first, but it might not matter, right? Like, this is where I was thinking about this last night and a little bit this morning. I love what we do at BOF. I love being a part of the team. I really enjoy the conversation, and most of the time I enjoy the speculation. But I think at some point, we are the very dedicated fans. And are we cheating ourselves out of just enjoying these movies, just going into the friggin' theater, popcorn and your soda or whatever else, the lights go down, and you just enjoy what's in front of you for what it is, as opposed to getting pulled into all the other nonsense and worrying about how's this fit in the plan? And, I saw somebody tweet, what made me think about it. Somebody was tweeting today. They're like, DC put out a promo tweet for Shazam! Fury of the Gods. And they're like, are you kidding me? You want me to get invested in this when you're just rebooting everything, blah, 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 blah. Why would I ever go see this? And my thought was, like, to go enjoy a movie? Like, do you remember that's a thing, to just go sit your butt in a seat for a couple hours and enjoy the dang movie?
This is one of the negatives of shared universe stuff.
Yes, sir.
That it relies on what came before, what's happening now, and what's coming up.
Yeah. And I get the appeal, because I enjoy the Marvel movies, and I have had some DC fan envy to see the success, and man, they're bringing all these cool characters, and man, these cool characters that I like that aren't the big three don't get pulled into DC movies, and it'd be cool if we could do that too. But, and I don't know, maybe this is where I start sounding like a cranky old man, which I know is typically your job. But like, is it a just sign of where we are as a society that we're so overstimulated with, like, not just the thing we're looking. I mean, for example, I'm watching a show, but I'm looking at fantasy football scores on my phone. Like, we very rarely just sit and enjoy the one thing that's in front of us. Like, we get distracted by the overall story and narrative, and it can't just enjoy this thing. I have to understand everything that's going on. Where's the plan, Warner Brothers? Where's the plan?
Yeah.
Like, we've kind of ruined We've taken the joy out of just the simple experience of watching movies and going to a different world for a couple hours at a time.
That's why I stay away. I avoid the social media stuff. I'd look at it as one film at a time personally. But I get it. I get what you're saying totally. The Superman thing has all sorts of layers to it.
Oh my gosh. It's an onion within an onion.
It is the bottom line here. And I know people were raging. I saw some. I mean, I see a little more cleaner and more nicer, respectful version of complaints on our BOF Facebook group.
Right.
Stuff. There were
the barrier to entry of that group is that you have to be at least somewhat reasonable, right? Like,
yes,
the wackos don't get in.
Absolutely. People were upset about, they're going to reboot all this. Why was Henry Cavill in Black Adam? Well, if Gunn and Safran didn't have any plans for that, why didn't they just cut it out? Well, I try to explain that film was locked.
Yeah.
Before those two fellows took over DC Studios, which it is now, and were on the job, period. And secondly, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, had he had the Jones for Henry Cavill to cameo in that film, and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And that's the number one reason why it happened. And it wasn't taken out because the two guys hadn't been hired and they hadn't started work, and there was no plan yet. So you can't bitch and say Warner Brothers is a shit show and they dropped the ball again. Not on that. No,
I agree entirely. They hadn't been hired. I mean, read Gunn's tweets. It has just been him and Safran over the last couple of weeks figuring out exactly what they want to do and what was going to be in and what was going to be out. Black Adam, it came out before then. We're over like a month and a half. So we're 2 months since Black Adam released, And let's not forget, The Rock is still The Rock, and you cannot understate that. Yeah, you can't. He's a massive businessman. He's a major public figure. He's arguably the biggest movie star in the world. It's like him and Tom Cruise are like really the only people that say, I'm going to go see the Tom Cruise movie, or I'm going to go see the Dwayne The Rock Johnson movie. There's very few of movie stars left that are on that level. Yeah. So if The Rock wants to do it, his production company's involved. He's got a lot of cachet, right? It's it's probably gonna happen. Now, if Gunn and Safran were hired a month earlier, would it still have happened? I don't know. Probably still. But you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Yeah, Joker told us that. I don't understand being upset about it, but I get the emotional reaction. When people stop at the emotional reaction and don't move on to, okay, let me try to intellectualize, let me think my way through my emotions. That's where I have a hard time with it. I've been lucky enough in my actual professional career, which, believe it or not, is not podcasting about Batman, to take over new teams a bunch of times. And I have kind of this, I mean it every time, but it's kind of a canned speech where listen, I'm going to make some decisions you like, and then I'm going to make some decisions that you don't like right away. And I'm asking for your trust with the decisions that you don't like, that you hear me out, you give it a good try, and let's see if it works or not. And I'm always going to be open to your feedback. You don't often get that from studio heads, right? Like James Gunn, I think, has been profoundly gracious in his communication and fan interaction. The number of times, I talked about this before, I see people tweet and it makes my skin kind of crawl. I'm like, God, it seems so cringy. But he's been very gracious with how much he's shared and how transparent he's been. I felt like in reading some of his tweets, I'm like, oh man, that's kind of like the time I took over this team. And I said, hey, we're going to work things out. Some of the stuff that you're hearing, I don't plan on doing it. Some of it I do plan on doing it. Some of it I'm not sure yet. It's in between, but I'd sure like you to give me a fair chance, and then we'll see how things go.
I think we need to bring up, this was part of that complaint, was that, and then I would get, well, they announced that he was back. Warner Brothers is the they.
Warner Brothers never did that.
I said, when did Warner Brothers send out a press release saying that Henry Cavill was back as Superman in a solo film and he would be Superman for a long time in the future? Never did it.
Never happened.
That
Never happened.
was, and this is where the Deadline story also confirmed that was Cavill.
Yeah.
Kind of on his own.
Making moves.
Yeah.
And I understand it. I don't think like how horrific of him, he lied to the fans or whatever, but like he's saying he's back. He's in this movie. He really, and if you listen to what he said, right? Like he's excited to continue playing the character. He wants to portray the character in this way. He didn't lie. Cavill didn't say, hey, guess what? Next June, cameras are rolling. We got a writer. We got a budget approval. And I'm Superman and Man of Steel 2. Like, he didn't say that. I don't even think he purposely misled people so much as like he was representing what he wanted. He was back as Superman.
Yeah.
And he does want to continue to play the character. Maybe it was a power play in some way. I would think a little
probably.
bit. But I don't think it was purposely. I don't think it was like some sort of jerk move. But at the same time, the studio didn't have a press release. The one thing I would say was a little bit where people could get confused. There was a number of Warner Brothers Discovery social media accounts, like didn't pay for your blue check mark, but real deal verified accounts that did send out like celebratory, congratulatory tweets about Cavill being back. It felt like it was a coordinated, social media announcement, but you don't know who's in charge of that account, right? Like something's getting traction, something's trending. We better put a tweet out to get eyeballs on this account. Like, it's, you never know. You can't read into too much. Don't believe everything you hear, son.
You're 100% correct. He did not lie. Probably a little bit of power play.
Yes.
Maybe not the best decision.
Yeah.
He could have made. Yes, he was back for Black Adam. Yes, he filmed something for The Flash. So yeah, he is back. Yes, Warner Brothers listened to Charles Roven, producer, on a pitch for Man of Steel 2, and with Gunn and Safran, they are apparently want to do something with Superman and go a different direction. I don't know if that includes Cavill. It sounds like it doesn't. So we shall see. But clearly, and I want to say again, whatever they end up doing, and whoever is cast in those roles, be it, any of the previous actors come back, this is going to be a brand new DC universe.
Yes.
Period.
You're not seeing a continuation, even if some actors continue on. This isn't a continuation of whatever verse you want to call it new. And, to further clarify my point, whoever is in these roles, whatever the future storylines are, I am in full support and want them to be successful because I want the characters to be successful. I love these characters. I want them to get exposed to even greater audiences and younger audiences, because that's how you continue to build, the fan base and not just to have some sort of arbitrary, I want my group that I self-identify to be successful, but because these things need to be financially viable for the characters to live on. And I think there's value in these characters more than satisfying any individual fan base of iterations or directors' wants. I just want these characters to be successful and financially viable so they can continue to live on in the future. So my grandkids can enjoy Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and the Flash and Aquaman and Green Lantern. Like, that's the key. However we get there, whatever. I just want them to be successful. I want them to be high quality, but I'm not the storyteller. I'm not the creative. I'm the enjoyer. I'm the digester of this stuff. So like my personal wants are not even a second row seat. I'm at the back of the bus.
Final point from the Hollywood Reporter article that I do not believe, I did not see it. If I missed it, that's my bad when it came to the deadline, is that they say that Matt Reeves, the Batman universe, is being left alone.
Yeah.
He's
social
continuing
media,
on.
even today, scrolling around, social media would tell you that they're going to make Matt Reeves' Batman universe the DC universe. It's going to evolve into that. I'm like, are you paying any attention whatsoever? Like, come on. It's just the opposite of that. And like, good. And we talked about this last week. And I wish they'd just do the black label. You could slap the black label on the Batman.
Yeah.
Why not?
I think they would behoove them tremendously to say we're going to have a black label at DC Studio with films that based on DC characters that are not part of the shared universe.
Yeah.
And I think it's a total win. It's different from what Marvel does. It's different from what it's kind of what they were going to do before. And you kind of, it's a best of both worlds type of deal because you're still doing Joker 2. You're going to have the Batman films. You're going to have the Batman TV shows like the Penguin, Arkham, and so forth. So make it a label, make it a banner.
I'd go one step further than that. Because the name of what Safran and Gunn are heading up is DC Studios, I would make a label for the connected stuff as well. I would say we have 2 labels that we oversee at DC Studios. They've been clear. It's not the DCEU, which was a terrible name the whole time, right? I like Ladkoff was better. Like we've got the DC universe, the DCU, and we've got DCBL, DC Black Label. And we're going to produce films that fit under these 2 labels of DC films. For your connected stuff, maybe 100%. A bit more fantastical, a little bit more like something you'd see out of a Justice League comic or Kingdom Come or whatever else. There you go. That's your DCU label. If that's the thing you're into as a fan, this is where you can come and get that belly up to the bar. If you like what we're doing over in the Batman and what we did with Joker and what we did with some of these more non-connected, allow the director to have more of their vision as opposed to a producer studio head's vision, then you come over to DC Black Label, and that's where you're going to find that. I mean, again, I'm not the businessman in this front, but I think there's a lot of merit to that approach.
I think that would make for a great op-ed piece for Batman on Film, Garret.
Oh man, somebody should get to writing that.
Yes.
I might have to warm up the old keyboard fingers. I haven't had an article on the site in a fair chunk of time.
That's a great idea. So, it's no secret that, Matt Reeves, what he's doing with the Batman, that's my top priority. I look at the other as gravy. I am a fan of James Gunn. I want to see what he comes up with. And I will say to him, he came out, and let's give him also just a little bit of airtime here. He did come out with a tweet. He didn't ignore it. He said, basically, I think you alluded to it. Some of it's true. Some of it's not true. Some of it's half true.
Right.
But
some of it we don't know.
Yeah. And it was we're not going to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
So acknowledging that changes be a coming, y'all.
And you know what? Like, bravo for him for putting it out there, because too much of blockbuster entertainment now is, research group to death. Everything needs to be a 4-quadrant picture. And to be honest, to be successful, you really do need to appeal to as big of a chunk of your general audience as possible. But you get these movies that are made by committee and just some of the life gets sucked out of them. Like, I would rather something be really good with a great vision it's not just going to be for some people, but some people are going to love it. Like, you think about like the really good movies, like, the cinephiles, like the people that are like the art, like there's a lot of great movies. They're not for everybody. I know some really divisive movies that some people love and some people don't love, but man, are they talked about and they're memorable. Like, that's cool. That's good. I think that reading between the lines of what Gunn's saying is, I think he's trying to tell the best stories possible. They're going to make the most people happy. Some people you're never going to make happy. And, again, without trying to, poke anything at any particular group, because it's pointless and the time's been gone for that. But if there's a group of fandom that is only married to one vision, and one director's story that they wanted to tell a decade ago, or not even a decade ago, after the curveball hit, you're not going to be happy. If you want to be open-minded to what we can do with these characters and create some fun stuff, there's a good chance we can try to make you happy. We might not, but there's a good chance.
Well, we shall see soon. I think what's the word? They're going to be turning in their plan to Zaslav here in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
And then
building out the framework in their creative Bible and the whole deal.
And then they'll be, letting folks know. So I got to say props to James Gunn. He has been, people keep atting him nonstop.
Dude, can you imagine? He better have his assistant or intern who at least manages what tweets he should reply to or should see, because I imagine he doesn't see everything. I do believe this is him and very personal in his interactions, but I imagine he doesn't see it all. Someone's got to say, here's one that's worth looking at, or I would hope so. But whoever's screening out what to spend time on, what not to spend time on, they need a raise. Because people are unrelenting.
I would, I figure ultimately, even the ones who are hashtagging about what is come and gone and ain't coming back, I think that they'll all see these movies regardless.
Except for the people. There's one person that was kind of annoying cultist, I'll just say it, cultist, and talking about how they're done with DC films now and blah 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 blah, and then there's replies and there's these other bots that are saying the same stuff. But in the course of the thread, this person admitted that they don't even pay for any movies. They pirate all the movies anyway. Like even the director that they love, they didn't pay for those movies. Like why do you think you have any? You've got no reason for anyone to take you seriously or listen to you. But for fans that are going to go see superhero movies, they're going to go see superhero movies, right? And the audience and that's the dedicated fan base. The general audience, it's like, oh man, that looks like a big blockbuster movie. That seems like a fun time at the theater. Yeah. They don't care. No. And then there's big chunks of people like me. I love superhero content. There's a superhero movie that comes out. It's pretty few and far between that I don't make it to the theater to see, regardless of if it's Marvel or DC or, Valiant, the Bloodshot movie that I saw that movie, I'll go see it. I saw it on an airplane, but still, you're going to go, the audience that's there for it's going to be there for it. And the general audience that just wants some escapism.
I haven't thought of Valiant comics in a while.
Oh man, Cadillacs and Dinosaurs and Exo Manowar, Harbinger, they were huge. I was a big Wizard
Ninjak, remember that character?
Yeah. And then they had Image, and of course, Todd McFarlane's still trying to get the Spawn movie. Yeah. They had the Image Valiant crossover, and Wizard the Guide to Comics, man. They hyped up Image and Valiant like no other back in the day. I've got a big stack of those laying around. It's kind of fun to go back and visit
I used to be a lover of Wizard magazine back in the early 90s, man.
Yeah, I had it. I had a subscription from the time I was a little guy. Really when they were getting started and I was young, started collecting comics, really actively going to the comic book store every week for the Death and Return of Superman storyline. I had a subscription for years, all the way, I think, through the time I went to college. And then my brother continued the subscription for a couple years after that. So we have a bunch of Wizard. If you go back and look at when they started doing the fan casting stuff, it's really pretty humorous to see some of the movies. Hey, if this was going to be made, here's who we'd put in the movie.
I remember that
because some were right on. Some were like, who? What? One, no one would ever make this movie, and two, these are not makeable movie stars. The comic to screen accuracy visually does not get it done. Just because this unknown actor from this one episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine looked like this one panel doesn't mean this would ever happen. But it's fun to go back and look at those.
Hey, comic scene and Starlog, and then eventually Wizard. This was the internet before internet. When you try to find out about comic book, movie, TV, any of that genre type stuff. I've told this story many times. I used to go to the mall and stand there because I didn't want anybody to know that I like comic books because I was too cool.
Different time.
and I would read comics off the rack, and I would read Comic Scene and Starlog right there in Walden Books at Central Mall in Port Arthur, Texas, and get all the scoop, So I think somewhere subconsciously that was one of my inspirations for Batman on film,
it had to be. I'll put a finer point on it. Until I went to college and had internet access, because I've told a billion times how I lived out in the sticks in northern Minnesota in the middle of nowhere, between a forest and a lake. We didn't have the internet out there forever, like way past my buddies in town had the internet, until I got to college and had consistent internet access and found Batman on film during two-a-days my freshman year in football. Wizard Magazine was the only place that I had any of that content. So not only I'm sure that those Starlog and Comic Scene magazines served as an inspiration, Wizard, kind of the next generation of those, was my direct venue in to wanting to go investigate this stuff when I got the internet. Not to get educated, not to do research on my college papers or anything, but like, man, I'm dog tired after the fifth Batman movie. Oh, this tripod site might tell me. And there we go.
I'll end with a quiz. I'm going to quiz you. It's kind of it's a ranking. So, and we're not trying to diss anybody, and we're not trying to slide any actor or any fan base. If you had to rank from the main characters that were in Justice League, those actors who played them, okay, who would you rank from top most likely down to least likely to reprise their role in the new DCU?
Ooh, okay. So off the top of my head, I would say most likely I'm going to go with Gal Gadot. Most likely.
I would agree with that.
I think second most likely would be Jason Momoa.
I'm with you still.
I think third most likely would be Henry Cavill.
I'm still with you.
Coming in at number 4, this is where it starts getting tough.
Yes.
Number 4, I think Ben Affleck. And this is the drop-off. This is the split. I'm telling you, none of the rest of the actors have a snowball chance in hell at reprising their characters. Yeah. But if that snowball could melt just a little bit slower, it might be Ben Affleck. But again, he's not doing it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Next, Ezra Miller, because the Flash could hit big enough and they could publicity spin and he could go on the apology tour and go get himself some help.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Screw that. Ezra Miller. Apple's behind Ezra Miller just because it's not going to happen. He doesn't want to do it. There's no way he would ever be long-term Batman in the new world. Ezra Miller might have a better chance of being able to go get some help and do the publicity spin, plus have the Flash hit. So I'm going to go Ezra Miller, Affleck, and Ray Fisher's at the bottom. It's just not happening ever.
Yeah, we'll leave it at Justice League. I agree with your rankings. I think you're spot on with Ezra Miller. Everybody likes a comeback story. Everybody likes a redemption story. And apparently he's really good in the Flash from what, the test screenings have said.
Screenings are through the roof.
With that said, I don't know if any of them will come back. They may be the whole all new actors.
Yeah.
And real quick, it's a crazy dynamic because Gunn participated in the old DCEU with the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker.
Yeah.
And so he may have to make some hard decisions on himself.
His executive self,
his executive self will have to make hard decisions on his filmmaker self.
Yes, he has a different job now than he had then when he was making the Suicide Squad and making Peacemaker. And when heavy is the head that wears the crown, and this is a different role and responsibility for him. It would be interesting. I think I might, in my own brain, or if I get a break between some work stuff or kid stuff this weekend, write out those ranks and then apply a percentage of confidence to each. The percentages aren't going to be real high for any of them, but on the back end of that list, I got 0. On the high end, I might have 50-50. It's a tough one.
And then there's, where does Margot Robbie fit in?
That is the X factor. Because
we love Margot Robbie as Harley.
Yeah.
But she has not been in a hugely successful film as Harley.
Yeah, outside of Suicide Squad.
Yeah, well, yes,
financially,
financially, yes. So God, there's a lot of variables, and executive producer, or not executive producer, but executive, and being in the producing role, studio boss role of James Gunn, certainly is going to have some conflict with filmmaker James Gunn, as I just said. No doubt about it.
You would think so.
Yeah,
you would definitely think so. It'll be fun to watch. And although I said we kind of ruined ourselves by being in the population that's way in the weeds and behind the scenes stuff, and it kind of keeps us from just enjoying the movies, it's going to give us a lot of fun stuff to talk about for years to come now. So plenty of content for future episodes.
I didn't ask you this before we go. What's your level of excitement for the Penguin HBO series?
Super high. It's probably it's one of the projects I'm most that we know is happening, that is confirmed, that is in production. It's probably one of the things I'm the most excited about. Just the opportunity to kind of do the HBO Max organized crime thing in the Batman universe. The brain spins around how much Batman elements. Is this just a mobster show that happens to have the Penguin in it, or which is fine? You want to do that? My subscription's already paid for. I'm there,
Yep.
But is it that plus different elements of the Batman universe coming in? Is there a Harvey Dent aspect? What's Bruce doing during the show? I don't think he's in it, right? He's not I highly doubt he's going to be in it, but do you have the shadow of the Bat in it, so to speak? Like, that's very intriguing to me. It's all very interesting. And the talent that's being associated with it is sky high. So super excited.
Yeah, we did talk about it briefly about some of the casting coming up. And I'll say again, a crime drama on HBO, the home of The Sopranos and Boardwalk Empire, that's set in the world of Batman. If it could be that level of quality, man, that would be awesome. That would be just you can only do this with Batman, the world of Batman, things like this.
The pedigree that comes with an HBO project is high, particularly in this space is even higher. It's got a very high ceiling for where it could go. That's for sure.
All right. Where can people find you on social media if you want to divulge that information?
Yeah. Depending on who you are, I've had a couple interesting interactions. If you're listening to this and you're not just hate listening and you want to come give me a hard time, even if you do, whatever, I can have fun with it. You can find me at Twitter. I am at Garret Wato. That's at GARRETWATO. I talk a lot about Batman, Superman, He-Man, my kids, the various things I'm into, one of which is fantasy football, big NFL fan. Obviously, Bill and I have talked about football on different shows before. Mm-hmm. If you just like listening to me to talk and you don't care if it's about superhero stuff or if it's about football, you can find me on the Dynasty Dads Fantasy Football Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Dads. And I'd love to mix it up, keep chatting, because I'm a chatty guy.
I made a comeback in our BOF Fantasy Football League and clinched a playoff spot. And in BOF 2, I made a comeback, but it was a little bit too late. You ever have one of those teams where you score a lot of points, but you don't win?
Oh, yeah.
It works, it's just that fluke of the schedule that someone goes off every time you play them.
I've been there myself, and I've got one of my best buddies in my main league. I've been in it for 15 years. It's all my guys I played with in college. We call him Radio. He has like the highest most points in the league, and he's just barely going to make the playoffs, like just barely. He was outside most of the season and finally won enough. And he complains about it like almost every day. Well, of course, I'm playing Scott, and Scott's team goes off for the highest points he's had all year, and then I play Nick, and Nick's team does the same. There's very few things as irritating as that.
That's probably the most aggravating thing in fantasy football is have a team that's like the league high in scoring, and then each week you play someone who just happens to go off, and then you have a shit record. missed the playoffs. So
it's the opposite of what's going on in real life with the Vikings this year. Like point differential is not outstanding, but hey, they're getting the wins. So,
well, we're getting toward the playoffs coming up, the NFL playoffs. So it's going to be exciting. It's exciting for that. I think this thing is wide open. I don't think the Buffalo and Kansas City and the AFC is such a lock to win.
There are chinks in their armor. They are not.
Yeah. Whoever gets there from the AFC wins the Super Bowl. So we shall see.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the years where you can really say, I don't think there's an unbeatable team in the NFL. And the NFL has been designed for parity, right? It's not the European League soccer stuff. It's the NFL is designed on any given Sunday, somebody can win a game against whoever they're playing. And I don't know, in all my years of I don't remember a year where I think that's felt more true. We're like, I don't know. It could happen. The Browns could beat up on the Bengals. They went to the Super Bowl last year. And then, Patriots are, not the Patriots of old. The Bills are beatable. Kansas City has shown themselves to be beatable. All of a sudden, Detroit can put up 50 points. It's wild. It's been a fun season to watch because you really don't know what to expect.
I'm happy my Cowboys are getting hot right now. And then defense will travel in playoff games. It looks like we're going to have to be going as a wild card. So it's going to be fun.
Absolutely.
For me, you just find me at Batman on Film, and if you want just straight up news, the news feed for BOF, it's at the Batman on Film. That's all I got. Garret, thanks for coming on again. A good discussion here. I did want to kind of update the original story that I posted on Batman on Film based on the Hollywood Reporter article, and so this is kind of it instead of a written update. And with that, announcer Rachel will take us out, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the BOF Social Hour, Jett's official vlog and podcast on Batman on Film. Follow Jett on Twitter at Batman on Film. For BOF news only, follow at the Batman on Film on Twitter. To become a BOF patron, go to patreon.com/Batman on Film. To advertise on BOF, visit advertisecast.com/Batman on Film. For Jett and Team BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original. Batman on Film. Established in 1998.